Hey, what's up? Ward Wrestling Live here again. Thank you everybody for the support. We have uh, another amazing wrestling mind, a true huge wrestling mind in our country. He was the 2000 and did I put 16 National Wrestling Journals of the Year? Is that what it was?
It looks like it says 16, but it was 2019, I'm pretty sure.
I just realized I did that. Wow, that's my. I don't think that's called dyslexia because I just flipped the number. I didn't put the right one. Well, anyway, he is the National Wrestling Journalist of the Year from 2019. He is a writer with the Des Moines Register, all things wrestling. He also dabbles in other sports, but wrestling is his passion. And he started the In the Room, the Des Moines Registers. He covers all levels wrestling in Iowa, college, high school, as well as international styles with his podcast. So tune in the Room, and if you don't already, you'll get some good wrestling knowledge out of the Iowa, which is a hotbed for wrestling. And welcome, Cody. And my bad, I'll have to adjust that. 2019.
You are all good. I appreciate you having me. This is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm stoked. So all things wrestling. You've got In the Room. You've got the Register. You're in the heart. I mean, the heartbeat of wrestling, right? Right there in Iowa. There's like 25 college wrestling teams in your state, something insane like that. And you're in Des Moines. We got a lot of Florida kids out there. Pretty awesome, man. So, how has COVID kind of affected your world this summer?
It's been unique, man. I mean, we're all still a little bit salty that we didn't get the NCAA championships, right? Because, the 2020 NCAA tournament was supposed to be I've been calling it since they figured out that they were going to put it at US Bank Stadium, that it was going to be the biggest celebration of wrestling the sport has ever seen. So that was a little upsetting, threw a wrench into the whole Olympic thing, and I had plans to go out to Penn State and cover that. I had been talking a lot with Iowa USA Wrestling, kind of the state governing body, about, what we can do when it comes time for, the cadet and junior duels. And we know Fargo is always a big deal in the summertime with the cadet and junior national championships. I guess the 16U and junior national championships now. So COVID wiped all that out, which really stinks because we had some big plans this summer. It was a tremendous wrestling season up here in the state of Iowa. Iowa Central had a lot of really, really good success at the junior college level. Obviously, Grandview won again in an AIA. We were gearing up for, or at least I was gearing up for the Division III national championships at the NCAA level, which were in Cedar Rapids. And we have Loris and Wartburg and a handful of other D3 schools around the state that all had a bunch of dudes that were going to go there and compete pretty well. And it stinks. But I think we're slowly trending our way back to normal. You mentioned that I do a little bit more than just wrestling. I help out with some high school sports here in Iowa. And over the summer, Iowa's unique that they do baseball and softball in the summer months. So we got to do a little bit of that. Leading up to the state tournaments, which were at the end of July. And we actually just had our first week of high school football last week. So we're slowly kind of working our way back to things that maybe feel or look normal. I don't know how normal it actually is. There's a few COVID related restrictions that are going on with some of these sports and probably will be for a while. But man, I mean, when it comes to covering wrestling up here, I mean, you hit on it. It's kind of the heartbeat of wrestling country up here. It's very unique to cover wrestling in a state that is so absolutely passionate about it, for better or for worse. I mean, you have fans that absolutely love it and it's amazing, and then you've got other fans that might be a little irrational when it comes to their fandom, but that's part of the fun, right? So I don't take for granted at all the position that I'm in, and where I get to do exactly what I get to do. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've had a couple Iowa guys on. One is coming to Iowa, probably there already, Brettley Reyna. I had Lou go on earlier. They came on together, very tight family. But I've had a lot of Grandview boys and girls on. You guys are getting Verona there. You guys have Gio Bonilla there, two Florida guys.
Trying to think, a couple years ago, Shaquan Hall, he was up here.
I think you have Abbas, whatever his name is, and then Arla Valles, Coach Valles, she's from Florida.
There you go.
She's there because you just finished the first year of girls at Grandview, and I saw Emma Cochran post the boys' rings and saying, "We're next. We need to start a collection of our own." But I know, obviously, in the state, Iowa State, Division One, that's the history. But what makes that boys' team so amazing?
Oh, are you talking Grandview?
Yeah.
Man, I'll tell you what, it's the right combination of coaching and just I mean, it really does start there with Nick Mitchell. He's the head coach. He grew up in and around Des Moines. He really kind of had a master class when it comes to learning how to win. He was state medalist multiple times when he was high school wrestler, went to Wartburg, where he got to learn under Jim Miller. Jim Miller's legendary Wartburg coach has led them to multiple national titles, and up until recently had a ridiculous conference dual winning streak that started, I think, back in the early 90s. And then he came to Grandview, and he literally built Grandview from the ground up. And so the culture that they have there it's tremendous. I mean, they talk constantly about this quote unquote championship lifestyle, and that's doing things right on and off the mat. Taking care of things away from the mat so that you can focus on the mat when you are on the mat. They've got tremendous support because they a few years back, they built this brand new wrestling facility that I think they've got 4 full-size mats in there, plus locker rooms and just a ton of workout space. And it's what he's been able to build there, Nick Mitchell, and he's got a tremendous support staff with him when it comes to, his assistants, Paul Reedy, top assistant coach. And then he's got a bunch of other assistant coaches that have come through, a lot of whom are former Grandview wrestlers. And so they're able to kind of, hey, we've been through the program, we've been through the ringer, we've seen what it takes to build this up and win at this level. Here's what you have to do. Trust us. And everybody that walks through that room buys into that. And so it's tremendous culture, tremendous coaching, and just, I remember hearing a story not too long ago. I say not too long ago, but this was back when, Dan Gable was coaching Iowa back in the 80s when they rattled off 9 straight NCAA titles. And a lot of times they would win matches before they would even shake hands to start the matches because people would see the all black Iowa singlet and they would be intimidated. And who knows how many points that was worth. Well, Grandview kind of has the same thing going on a little bit at the NAIA level. I think there are some programs around the country that are starting to step up and challenge them maybe at certain weights. But, if you step on the mat and you see a Grandview singlet across from you, that you're going to get a dogfight. And, who knows how many points that's worth, right?
Those head coaches at the NAIAs around the country wrestled for Nick.
Yeah, his coaching tree is sprouting quite a bit.
Jason Schweer, Omi Acosta. I mean, you can keep going, right?
Yeah, and some of those programs, LifeU and a handful of other programs are starting to step up. Those are the programs that are developing enough talent to maybe try and challenge Grandview. I mean, we haven't really seen it yet at the national tournament, a team that can hang with them for, all 3 or 4 sessions of the national tournament. But, the rising NAIA programs are coming out of Nick Mitchell's coaching tree, which I think is really cool to see.
The best stories I hear, though, are the ones about the kids that are falling off the wrestling tree, and he finds them and invites them to Grandview. And overnight, he's turning these kids into 2.0 average kids that aren't loving the sport anymore, that are kind of fading into the abyss. And he turns them into 3.5 GPAs, wrestling at that NAIA level, and then going off into the world as a businessman or a coach or something. I mean, it just seems amazing what he's doing there.
Absolutely. He does he has a hard time saying no when he knows that kids can have, when they have the wrestling talent, right? But also, I mean, he's done a great job of developing kids because there's been a lot of kids. I mean, their recruiting base obviously starts in Iowa, right? And they're able to kind of branch out and pull some top tier guys from either the junior college level or, other kids from other top tier high schools who maybe didn't get, NCAA Division 1, 2, or 3 looks. But their recruiting base really starts in Iowa, and they're able to take a lot of these in-state kids and develop them so that they can turn into NAIA superstars. It's been really incredible to get to see how good they've been up close the last few years. I really enjoy watching those guys wrestle.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so I know you're pretty tight with Pat Lugo. You have a lot of conversation with him. I believe he's still living up there and training up there. He's got his god brother up there coming in, Bentley Reyna, who is a really good wrestler too, and I'm sure he'll do big things. But I had Pat on early on in this whole show process. I probably would have had better questions for him. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was just swinging at the fences.
Hey, do any of us know what we're doing? You know?
Yeah, I was asking questions, but what was his mindset through the end of the season, and where is it a belief in that room and around Iowa that he would have won it all?
It was really cool getting to know Pat and watching him wrestle, and really, like I said, getting to know him up close really over the last couple of years, and especially so this past year. To see the growth in his wrestling, because he was at Iowa for 3 years. I guess this would technically be his 4th year in Iowa City, because he's sticking around with the Hawkeye Wrestling Club doing some freestyle stuff. The growth from his redshirt year when he first came here to his first year in the lineup, and then from last season to this past season, the 1920 season, there were strides made every single year. And I think the biggest stride he made, coming into his senior year was really between the years. We can talk, until the cows come home about his defensive improvements and how I think he only gave up 2 takedowns in 22 matches this past year. The fact that he was just meaner on top. He scored way more riding time points this year than I think he had in his previous 2 years, while he was at Iowa. But I just mentally between the years, there was something different about him. He walked a little bit differently. He talked a little bit differently. You could just tell that, this was a guy that was going to step on the mat, and there was something a little different. And, his first year that he was in the Iowa lineup, he showed flashes that hey, this guy could be pretty good. He can string some things together offensively. But, when it came time for some of those bigger matches, those bigger moments, I don't know that he always rose to the occasion. This past year, he rose to the occasion almost every single time. And it was, I remember watching him at the Midlands when he beat Max Thompson from Northern Iowa, who's a past All-American, then Austin O'Connor from North Carolina, who was a returning All-American and at the time was the #1 ranked wrestler. And Pat Lugo made him look silly. It was very impressive to watch him control that match from his feet. It was very impressive to just, not only did he get the takedown to get the lead, but he tacked on 2 more to pile on to his lead. We saw the same thing in bigger duels, when they wrestled Oklahoma State and he pinned Boo Llewellyn. When he had to come up clutch with a win against Penn State. Big Ten championships. That was the best I think I've ever seen him look. And that includes the Midlands. That includes some specific duels throughout the year. It was something different up here. Obviously he executed on the mat, but yeah, there was absolutely a belief. And I think I shared that belief that going into the NCAA championships and 149, as as any wrestling fan knows, that was a pretty wide open weight, but I felt pretty confident that Pat could have potentially made a run of the finals and won the whole thing, which I think would have been pretty darn impressive considering, what that bracket looked like before the NCAA championships.
We could have seen a third match with him and Sasso.
I think we could have. They were separated, right? I'd have to pull the brackets back up, but I'm pretty sure I think he would have hit either Boo or Brock Mahler in the semis. He had to have gotten through Iowa State's Jarrett Dagan in the quarters, which that's been a close matchup the last few times they've wrestled. So then either Boo or Brock Mahler in the semis, and then probably either Sammy Sasso or Austin O'Connor in the finals, or whoever came out of the other end. But yeah, it had set up quite favorably for him to make a run to the finals and perhaps win it.
That's and it's been pretty cool doing this, getting to meet and talk to all these people, because I'm telling you, when I have a wrestling conversation now, I can't believe I'm having one, because April 6th, I had no clue. I knew what wrestling was, and I watched it and I understood it, and I was a parent, right? But the education and getting to meet so many people, I know there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I didn't speak to the brother, but I spoke to the sister. She's at Grandview, and then he is down at Iowa State.
Oh, the Gomez family.
Yeah, and they're doing big things. And man, it's crazy. I spoke to Coach DiPietro doing big things up there in Iowa with his club. And then you've got, oh man, I'm going to totally mess up his name. He was from Morocco or something, and he's opening up a big club out there on the Iowa border, kind of Nebraska. His son is on like the Nebraska USA board. They sell the drink grit and the feather singlets.
Okay. I can't put a name to it either, but I know who you're talking about.
Sorry, dude. I forgot. That sucks. I've only done 300 of these. But man, yeah, you got plenty to write about. You know, where did your passion for wrestling come from? Where did you decide to say, okay, I want to be a writer, but that's the sport I want to follow?
Total happy accident. So I grew up a wrestler. I'm originally from Kansas City. And so I grew up a wrestler. I went to Park Hill High School. The joke that I like to tell people is that when I was 4 years old, my dad took me to a local park and said, shoot a free throw. And I airballed it. And the next day we went to wrestling practice. And so the other part of this is that my family doesn't grow them very big. I'm 5'9", 160 pounds. So like, we're not big people. So wrestling was always going to kind of be our thing, unless I was going to be a super tiny point guard, or, my mom wasn't too big on us playing football because we weren't very big. But I also grew up playing soccer, played baseball a little bit. But wrestling was just always kind of what I came back to. Just really thoroughly enjoyed the mano-a-mano aspect. When you get to the, collegiate level, you hear these guys talk often about like the process of improving. And I really thoroughly enjoyed that. I don't know that I gave much of a thought to writing about wrestling really until I got to school. I really didn't give much thought to writing at all until probably high school. I had a sophomore year English teacher that kicked me in the butt and taught me kind of how much fun storytelling and the process of piecing a story together could be. So that kind of made me want to pursue journalism a little bit. That and just I grew up watching SportsCenter. So I literally jumped from SpongeBob to SportsCenter at age like 8 to 9. And so that was just, those guys have all the fun, right? Like that's what every kid dreams of.
I think there was a point where my wife said, I'm canceling all TV channels except for ESPN because you don't watch anything else.
Yeah, right? Like that's.
Now I've learned to watch some other stuff so I can keep it.
Yeah.
I don't even have cable. I got Netflix and all that stuff. And then you watch ESPN Plus for the fights or whatever.
Yeah, right.
That's cool. So, man, obviously you're doing big things. I mean, what did it mean for you to get Wrestling Journalist of the Year? Did you see it coming? Was it a surprise?
Total surprise.
And what did it do for your career?
It was really cool. Like it was just, it's a peer voted thing through the National Wrestling Media Association, which I think that's super awesome. Just that my peers felt it was, cool enough to not just, to really just to get nominated, cause I don't know that we know how many people ultimately read wrestling until people reach out to us. Right. Or how many people follow, certain wrestling platforms until people reach out and say, hey, this was really cool. Or, hey, this was nice. Or, people know about, Flow Wrestling, the Open Mat, Intermat, USA Wrestling, big things like that. But until, I guess when it comes to covering wrestling for the Register, I'm pretty centrally located to Iowa, right? I do some other things every now and again, maybe sometimes on a national level, but I mostly just stick to Iowa. That's Iowa State, Northern Iowa. That's the high school scene, which a bunch of people love. I dabble with some smaller colleges. We have a D2 school and then a bunch of D3 and AI junior colleges in and around the state. So there's plenty of wrestling to cover here, but you never know who really is reading all of it until you see the numbers or somebody reaches out to you. So it was pretty cool. Like took me totally by surprise. It was also, I don't know, like you see, some of these other writers that win it, guys like Willie Saylor, guys like Andy Hamilton, previous Register writers have won it before. Like Dan McCool, like Andy used to write for the Register before he writes for Track Wrestling now. And before then, I think he may have won it for the Iowa City Press Citizen, which is a smaller paper we have here in Iowa. So it was really cool. It just more recognition than anything, but I super blessed to be able to kind of add my name to a lot of people that have done a really good job covering this sport over the years.
So, I've thought about blogging from my show, but I don't know if people would read illiteracy.
I have learned this. If you write wrestling, People will find it. And if you find a niche, man, like that's, I mean, writing for the Des Moines Register, Iowa is obviously the built-in niche, but like writing about Florida wrestling, like I know that the guy at the Sun Sentinel does a really good job. Brant Parsons, I believe his name is.
Yeah, Orlando Sentinel, awesome.
Orlando Sentinel, yeah.
He reached out to me like 3 weeks ago, and then he did an article on me, and it ended up, so it went online, and then as you know, he can do an art, everything goes online, right? But then he said, I'm going to submit it to print, but you know this better than me. He goes, look, nothing is automatic with print. We all submit stories and then they decide if it gets accepted or not. And then last 2 Fridays ago, he calls me. He's like, hey, they accepted your print. It's in the paper. And I'm like, damn. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. So, man, thank you, Brant. That was awesome. But it's cool. Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll shoot you. I have the link, so I'll send it to you so you can check it out.
Hey, awesome.
But it was pretty cool. You have you've been obviously writing and covering all this stuff, and then when did the podcast come into play? Was it we're in quarantine, so it seemed like the thing to do, or was it something that you had already? It was already a baby that was you were kind of grooming it, right?
So we started doing the podcast this past season. So I think we launched it in like November, which was like shortly after the big three. At least that's what we refer to them as, Iowa State and UNI, right after they had gone through their media days. So I had a ton of content. I had a bunch of extra stuff that maybe I wouldn't write, but I wanted to find a way to get it to people who were following me. And so, like random interviews that, maybe I didn't use a whole lot of, but that had something cool. Or things like that. Or like if I just had random thoughts that maybe weren't worth a full story, but I wanted to get it out to people to kind of see what they thought. And so we launched this podcast this past year. And it was a lot of fun. Like I would try to do 2 a week during the season, and then I would try to do 1 a week during the off season. And it's been kind of hit and miss just because, a couple of different work things and just maybe limited on what we can and can't do and who's available and things like that. But I recently actually just put out our 50th episode, which is really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, just kind of used it as like another avenue to get wrestling content to people and just kind of continue the ongoing wrestling conversation that we basically started throughout the season. So, I mean, I had, I guess since I've been on the beat, like we've done a pretty good job of getting results to people. We've done a pretty good job of kind of explaining what those results mean, done a pretty good job of sharing stories. Since I've been on the beat, I do like a weekly mailbag where I kind of solicit questions to kind of see what people want to know, what they're curious in. And I've had a lot of fun with that. And then I was like, well, naturally the next thing might be to try to do a podcast. Let's see if we can roll this thing out. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been kind of challenging. Some weeks I'm literally flying blind and I don't know what's going to be on it. Some weeks I have a better idea and I'm able to plan some stuff. But it's been really cool. I'm sure probably, as like sometimes it's, you kind of fly by the seat of your pants and things work out. And other times it's just like, okay, like we might have to pull something out of our back pocket that we've been saving for a while because we just don't know what's going to happen. And, but it's been really cool. It's been kind of another way to just kind of continue the wrestling conversation,
I think the worst for me is like people that are short, not short in height, but not short in height, but like, if,
people who answer questions like this.
Yeah. A lot of the younger kids, but there's adults that do this shit too. Like, the hell, like I'm like, hey, so how was this kid? Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, I just kind of did it. And I'm like, shit, we're like 10 minutes into this. I've asked you all 7 questions. Where do I go from now? I'm like, I don't know where to go from here. I'm like, I'm just trying to add like, what do you guys call it? Fillers? I'm like, okay, well, do you like to play basketball too? Like, I don't know what the hell to say. But
that might be one of the biggest challenges when it comes to like interviewing people, especially high school kids. I love talking to high school kids because they're not media trained. Most of the college athletes are media trained, so they kind of know to maybe reel some things back sometimes. But high school kids are not. So you're either going to get amazing off the wall answers, or sometimes you'll just, they won't know what to say because they're, oh, it's a newspaper guy, I'm nervous. Right. So, which is why like, I do my best to try and disarm the kids whenever I do talk to them, just like try and crack a joke or, they're obvious. If I'm talking to them, obviously, like they did something spectacular. So let's see if we can get them talking about that a little bit to get them to open up a little bit.
Which is why I jump on like 10 minutes prior with people. I go over this, and then, just to kind of get to know. So when we go live, you're not like, oh my God, what am I going to say now? All right, we already spoke for 10 minutes. We're good. But yeah, I think that's the biggest problem. Like when they're just so short, like the answers are one answer or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, please, come on, do it. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, shit. But man, that's cool. So 50. So you do one a week.
I tried to. They're a little fewer and far between since, now we're into high school football season. But, like with here in October, the USA Wrestling is bringing their senior national championships up here to Iowa. So like hopefully going to do probably a few more leading up to that, maybe some coming out of it. The occasional wrestling conversation, as things arise. So it's, it's been kind of hit and miss a little bit, but yeah, I did just hit 50. So I was actually pretty pumped about that.
Do you do like Zoom like this, or it's just regular recordings?
It kind of depends. I have been doing a lot more Zoom conversations just because of all the, the state of the world right now. Right.
But you're at a tournament with your phone, right? Like record. Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, well, I have an actual recorder with me, or I'll use my phone if I need to, or sometimes like I'll shoot video with my phone if I want to do video interviews, and I can pull the audio from that if I want to use it. So there's a lot of different ways that I can, because a lot of times, I would try to do what I would call like a weekly freestyle, where like on Sunday nights or Monday mornings, I would just kind of recap the weekend that was. And sometimes I would just lay down interview tracks, whether it was funny or revealing or whatever the case may be. And so sometimes it wasn't like a one-on-one interview like you and I are doing now. It's just kind of like, hey, this is what he said after the duel. And then, Tom Brand's quote or Kevin Dresser quote or something like that.
Oh, yeah. I've thought, I don't know how good I'd be by myself. I feed off like other people, right? So I was in sales my whole life. So I can go, right? But I thought about that because now that wrestling's coming, and I'm going to take notes and stuff and watch these matches. I don't know if I can come on by myself and be like, hey guys, great time this weekend. I had a blast. I watched the match on mat 3. We had John and Joe. It was great. I don't know if I'll have to learn. I'll probably just stand in my mirror a little bit and try and do it. But I need someone to talk to. Maybe I'll just have you come on. I'll be like, hey dude, let's talk.
I'm always down to talk wrestling.
Yeah. You said the big 3. I'm surprised it's not the big 4 in Iowa, man. You guys have some great wrestling there. So, I was reading doing some research on you and reading some articles, and there was a really, really cool one about a school called Southeast Polk. So you did a story on Southeast Polk wrestling, and about their history and things like that. Tell us that amazing story. That was pretty cool what goes on there.
Yeah, so Southeast Polk is it's kind of one of the wrestling powerhouses here, not unlike, maybe not as dominant as like a Brandon down in Florida, but like a South Dade almost, where they're continually a team that is always going to be in the hunt, and, they churn out talent regularly that goes and wrestles collegiately, whether it's, D2, D3. Most recently, they've had a run of Division I kids. Just a really talented high school program that's often recognized nationally. And they tend to wrestle a regionalized schedule every season where they'll leave the state of Iowa and go to Wisconsin, or they'll go down to Kansas. They'll go, they'll try and wrestle some of these bigger tournaments to get these guys some higher profile matchups. And so they had a really good team a few years back. Well, they finished second the last 2 years at the Class 3A state championships, and Class 3A for Iowa is the large class. Before that, they've rattled off a handful of other state championships, and I think they finished in the top 3. I don't know how many years in a row. Just a really, really good wrestling program. And, not unlike other wrestling programs around the state here and around the country, they like to decorate their walls with accomplishments. And so, for a neat idea, I was, because I thought that they were probably the heavy favorites to win a state title a few years back. I decided to talk to, their team captains, all of whom are now Division I wrestlers. And we just kind of walked around the wrestling room, and they were just kind of explaining why they hung certain things. They had hung up, state duels results They would always, hang a banner for teams that qualified for state duels, that won state duels, that finished second or third or whatever the case may be. They have a wall dedicated to all of their state medalists. And there's hundreds of them, and have been hundreds of them over the last couple of decades. Just a really, really, really impressive program. And then they have, fat heads. They print out fat heads of their state champs, and they put them on the wall with, the years that they won, their career record. And then the team state championships, they memorialize those guys with a team picture and then a short story about the team and how they were able to win that year, and kind of recapping the season. And so we just kind of walked around the room, and the story idea that ultimately came out of it was that, hey, the Southeast Polk uses, their program's past to help inspire the future, so that they could potentially make more history. Right. And so that was a really cool idea. We did it with Southeast Polk because their wall's a little bit more decorative among the others here in the Des Moines area, which is right here in central Iowa. But there's a lot of other programs around the state, like Lisbon, Iowa. That's a smaller school. Waverly Shell Rock, which has actually won the last 2 Class 3A state championships. They do some cool stuff when it comes to memorializing their wrestlers. A lot of programs around the state. Osage, West Delaware. Trying to think who else. Fort Dodge up in Iowa, about an hour and a half north of here, has a rich wrestling history. Lewis Central, not too far from here, had a really good run of wrestling success in the early 2000s. They turned out both the Paulsons that went to Iowa State. So, lots of wrestling programs here around the state of Iowa. They always tend to do something unique when it comes to, their past wrestling results and the success that the program and individuals have had. And it's always really cool stepping in these different rooms and kind of seeing, hey, what are these guys doing? How do they memorialize, their past champs? What do they do to celebrate their program's history? And some of it's the same, but some of it's kind of different. And so it was really cool to kind of walk through Southeast Polk and just kind of hear what it meant to the kids that are in the program, right? Like that was kind of the coolest part. Like, what does it mean to you, even though you're 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, as opposed to the people that have already come through it and have already won, so to speak. So that was really
I had Alex Cody on, who's a young wrestler he's going to be a junior this year. He's already won. He's done pretty damn good at South Dade already. And I think he plays second or third this year. But you ask him, and what's that goal? He goes, I want to be on the wall, was his words. So they obviously have a wall at South Dade too. I know my kid wrestles at the club at CFWA, and on their wall is all their Lake Highland prep stuff, because the coaches that coach that has CFWA is also the head coach for Lake Highland Prep, and they're pretty good. They're like 5 in the country or something, right?
I was gonna say they're about to wrestle a prep schedule, right? They're about to go wrestle guys like Wyoming Seminary and Blair, and
I'm looking forward to
wrestle with the big dogs.
I'm hoping that brings some good light on Florida wrestling.
I hope so.
And but we've got some. So what do we have? We got you've got a stud in Verona coming to Iowa over at Grandview. He's a beast. Won a state championship on a broken ankle. What a story that was.
Decent.
Gio Bonilla, I think, just came up out over there.
Giovanni Bonilla, yeah, he's up here.
Abbas, I think his last name is. But then over at the big house in Iowa, you've got Bretley Reyna coming in.
Bretley Reyna's there as a freshman, and then Northern Iowa has a Florida boy too. I might butcher his last name. Ethan Bassel.
Ethan Bassel is in Northern Iowa. That's with Norton, right? Coach Norton. Is it Coach Norton?
Coach Schwab.
Coach Schwab. I had Schwab on. Schwab is what an awesome dude. And isn't the Basil? Yeah, the Basil kid, Ethan Basil. Basil, right? Christine?
Basil,
yeah.
Okay. I got to learn how to pronounce that. He's going to be really good.
Yes, he is really good. He's got a little brother in high school who's already won the whole thing, and they just posted that he'll be back at the Michigan Grappler this year over in Myrtle Beach.
Nice.
So, I guess I'm still calling it the Michigan Grappler, but it's the Myrtle Beach Grappler this year. So Florida's looking to win that thing again, make it 2 years in a row. That'll be awesome. And then you've got Reyna coming too. Man, you guys got some Florida hammers out there, so that's awesome. prospect coming in. I'm sure they'll do big things there in Iowa. Man, this is it's been pretty cool talking to you. I haven't had a writer on before. Well, no, I did have a journalist. I had Klingman.
Kyle Klingman, yeah, he's the Track Wrestling with Andy.
Yeah, what a nice guy he is. I reach out to him sometimes. I think I pocket called him once. I was like, oh. Yeah, he's like, no worries. But I got some 10 questions for you. Ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So Blank Park Zoo or History Farms?
Ooh, I'm going to take the zoo on that one. I like that.
Smoky D's or Woody's?
Oh, Woody's for sure.
The Art Center or Botanical Gardens?
I'm a nerd. Art Center.
I like it. This is a big issue. Coach Vaez gets really mad at her wrestlers when they pick the wrong one. Bebops or Zombie Burger?
Oh man, are those my only two options? I'm actually a Five Guys guy.
Oh, well, I hear that one has tremendous burgers and one has tremendous milkshakes. But I don't know one.
Well, Zombie Burger has both. So if those are my only two options, I'll take Zombie Burger.
All right. Decatur Farms or Ingersoll Avenue? Downtown Farms, I'm sorry, or Ingersoll Avenue.
I'll do Ingersoll. I'm actually not far from there.
I wish I could read my own handwriting. Maybe I should put my glasses on. Fogg's or Michelangelo's?
Ooh, Fongs. We're going Fongs.
All right, I said that right. The Somerset Winery or the Jasper Winery?
Oh man, I don't do wine, but Jasper Winery. I'll go there. I'll go there.
Tacos La Familia or Tacos de Golado?
Oh, Tacos La Familia for sure.
Love it. Grays Lake or Walnut Woods?
Grays Lake. I used to, when COVID shut my gym down, that's where I would go run every day. So.
And Exile or 1717?
Exile for sure.
Not a wine, but a beer guy. When you go to St. Pete Brewing.
St. Pete Brewing. Okay.
That's my sister and brother-in-law. They're a partner there. He's the brewer. And I know everybody. I have to get down there. You've been asking me all summer. So I do got to get down there and get everybody to come have a beer with me. But man, it was an absolute honor to get to meet you, man. This is so awesome. I'm sure I can keep going with questions and we could talk forever, but I'm smelling dinner and it's driving me crazy. Because I got man boobs and I'm hungry.
You're not cutting weight anymore, so it's all good.
No, I never was cutting weight. I've gained and lost thousands of pounds. Hey, again, thank you so much, and let's do it more often. I'd love to do this. Probably pretty cool. We could do like a IG live or something, having coffee in the morning or whatever.
That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. I look forward to getting out and about and getting to meet everybody. I guess I'm gonna have to learn how to do these things not live because it'll be difficult to be live everywhere you go. So I'm learning how to be one of you guys.
Hey man, you got it. For I don't know. Hardest part is just taking the first step, right? So the fact that you got how many shows now are we up to?
I think it's 300.
There you go. Hey, that's impressive.
Since April 6th, I think. Yeah. I don't know. I just keep doing it. If people keep signing up, I'll keep going. I don't know.
That's awesome. That's
people
awesome.
Ask me, how do you get people? I go, I don't know. They keep showing up. I keep talking to them.
Everybody wants to talk wrestling, right?
Yeah, and I don't. It's really cool because sometimes I guess sometimes the word gets out. And at first I thought only Florida knew who I was, right? But now I'll get messages like, hey, if you ever have an opening, I'd love to be on. Like, anybody's welcome. You don't have to ask, just come on, click the link, let's do it. Because that's the point. We're giving back here. We're making a voice. We're making it heard. I love it. So Um, Again, it's been awesome. So if you know anybody out there that wants to talk wrestling, I know wrestling isn't that big in Iowa, but you could probably find a few people. Send them my way. And man, keep doing it big, brother. Keep kicking life's ass. I hope that I get to meet you eventually one day at one of these tournaments somewhere. If not, we'll just keep doing it like this.
Right on. Hey, man, I appreciate you having me, and always down to talk wrestling. So the season's going to be back here before we know it. Thank goodness.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. I can't believe I actually know Iowa wrestlers to ask you about and teams.
Hey, man, they not just Florida, but like the South as a whole. I know Georgia's produced quite a few really good wrestlers, and there's a handful that are coming up to I think UNI. So it's mostly the Panthers outside of Brettley Reyna coming to Iowa. So there's UNI has found a little pipeline there in the South, which is really cool.
I talked to Schwab, and I think he's got a buddy down here that's like, hey, take a look at this kid. Hey. So he's doing it big over there. Good for him. I know it's nice to see, Florida kids sprinkling into the country, and maybe I just know the ones that are going now because my short period, 2.5 years, I see them going out, I mean, you got the Twins going over to Campbell, and you got their team member Castillo going over to UTC, and you've got Danny Martinez going up to Penn, and you've got Reyna coming out there, Basile coming out there. Florida kid. I mean, it's crazy to see where it's going, and pretty awesome.
I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you take it easy. I'm like a cat. The smell is getting stronger. But then I'll go down there, and my wife will be like, "You can't eat till you take a shower." I'm like, "Yes, Mom." 44 years old. I still got to answer to. But I learned that 22 years ago. I do. Yes, honey, I do.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Hey, man, I'll hit you up on the private message. I'll send you my cell, and we could keep in touch. I got some things I want to talk to you about too, but not live.
Sounds like a plan. I appreciate you having me. This was fun.
Yes, sir. Anytime. We could do it once a week if you want. I'd love to. Have a good one, man.
You too.